Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sunrise Extra on this Thursday. A very big news story around the world happening this week was headquartered right in Beirut, Lebanon. No doubt you have seen many of those videos now on social media of the just jaw-droppingly huge, deadly explosion that happened Tuesday afternoon, our time. It was about 6 p.m. There in Beirut, when right there at the port, there was a building that had many tons of ammonium nitrate that spontaneously combusted. First it started as a fire, and then that explosion that we have seen in so many videos. And we are very fortunate to be joined live this morning by Rafael Velasquez, the director of Mercy Corps. He is based in Lebanon, joining us this morning to chat about this. Raphael, thank you so much for joining us. You said it's about 6 p.m. your time there in Beirut. Take us back to Tuesday. Where were you? How did this kind of play out personally for you?
Thank you for having me. Yes, indeed. Actually, it was a couple of days ago around this time. We were actually not too far from here. I was just across the street from where I am right now in our office, taking a call with colleagues in Portland, actually. And what we at first thought was an earthquake. As I stand up to walk towards the door, is when the blast of the explosion reaches me, and I realize that this is something much bigger than an earthquake. We look outside the window and see a massive pillar of smoke and understand that there has been a big explosion. At that point, we start hearing sirens, you start seeing alarm systems go off, and also at that time is when we start trigger what we call a alert tree to make sure that every single one of our members is safe and accounted for. And then we go through a series of contingency plans and protocols to see what we need to do and how we can start supporting local rescue operations.
So, Raphael, tell us a little bit more, because I'm so thankful that you appear to be just fine. But kind of set the scene. Where was your office? How close to the port? What did you feel when you saw the pillar of smoke? Or give me some idea of what that moment was like.
Sure. So right away, we in this kind of organizations are normally used to, in such situations, go through basically crisis mode mentality. At that point, so what we did was make sure that everyone was safe and secure, but we knew that something major had happened. Just in terms of giving you an example of the steps that we took is we make sure that everyone is safe and in the team is safe. That takes a couple of minutes to go through that. While that is happening, we found out that there was a couple of our team members whose houses had been completely destroyed. They couldn't spend the night where they normally live. Our offices and the places where I'm staying are about 3 miles from the explosion site. And a lot of our colleagues were staying about maybe 1 kilometer from the photo you have online right now. The destruction is massive. This is comparable with an earthquake. We walked, taking a car was not an option. Traffic was massive. Everyone was in the streets. We walked to meet colleagues that needed to be relocated to different locations. The streets were full of broken glass and debris. The hospitals were at full capacity. People were being attended in parking lots. And yet at the same time, we saw people walk out to the streets right away and start cleaning up, moving glasses, taking total strangers and bringing them to hospitals for medical attention. You start seeing putting billboards on street posts, looking for people or saying, I found this pet. If anyone knows who it belongs to, let me know. The community, the city went into crisis management right away.
Mercy Corps is an organization that is all about helping others. And I know you want to put others before yourself, but really you're the first person we're speaking to that was there when this happened. So I know Brenda tried to ask this question. I'm going to ask you again, Raphael. You're 3 miles from the explosion. Did you feel it? I imagine you had to. What did it feel like? Talk us again through your personal experience, what this was like when you first felt it.
It's disconcerting. The first thing you do is you stand up thinking, this is an earthquake. I need to find a safe location.
Did you feel it in your building, though? I'm asking, did it rock your building? Like, did you feel the...
Yes, very much so. The windows of the entrance to the place where I'm staying are completely shattered. The building shook left and right for about 7 seconds. And I'm 3 miles away from ground zero. My office is a little bit closer to the zero. Windows, this here is the office, and I don't know if you can see
we can,
this crack right here.
Oh, yes.
Now, we're lucky. This is not structural damage. A lot of the city has seen complete and total fall of walls, people trapped. So to your question, you feel it, you become disconcerted, you don't know where you are, and then the training kicks in and you start remembering your safety and security, and then you go through the motions that you've been trained for in terms of making sure that the protocols and contingency plans are put in place. But yeah, it is very disconcerting, and you are in a situation of fear.
Now, this happened during, obviously, everyone in the world is going through coronavirus right now. So you have that playing in, but also kind of talk about what Beirut and Lebanon has been going through, because that country has been in a real economic turmoil. And Brenda and I had both listened to the same New York Times podcast today, in which they interview one of their reporters who's lived in Beirut for 2 years. And she was saying, actually, on Tuesday, that day that it happened, was one of the first days, or one of the few days that people were being let outside and businesses were open and electricity was on. Kind of talk about, what has been going on in the country that makes this so much worse to happen now.
Definitely. It's a series of shocks and stressors that have been hitting Lebanon now. Let me add one more. No other country in the world has welcomed more refugees per capita than Lebanon. 30% of the population in Lebanon are refugees. A lot of these people escaping the civil war in Syria, looking for a safe harbor. Yes, you're right. COVID right now on an all-time high in Lebanon, a series of weeks and weeks of lockdown. And this was finally the one day where people were going to be able to go and do some shopping and see some family members. You also mentioned the economic hardships. About 80% of the value of the lira has lost 80% of its values. Imagine that you wake up one day and realize that 80% of your savings are gone, that your salary can only buy a fraction of what you could in the past. 51% of people living in Lebanon rely as a livelihood on small businesses and enterprises. All of these businesses, because of the economic crisis, don't have insurance, don't have savings, and then get hit with these massive explosions. They won't be able to afford new glasses, new windows, new walls, or the capital or the staff salaries. It is, I do want to convey, it is a terrible situation of massive destruction, but I also want to stress, if there is one group of people that know how to stand up, if they're given the resources, but that are willing and able, it is the Lebanese people.
So can you talk a little bit about what you're hearing on the ground about the cause of this particular explosion? Because we're talking about 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate that was just sitting in this building, apparently for years. What are you hearing? Some people are reporting that it spontaneously combusted. Others say, it's still too soon to say. What do you know about that?
So I think I'll start by saying that there is a lot of, as it tends to be the case in this age of social media, a lot of misinformation. And it's difficult sometimes to go and understand what is credible and what is reliable. What you describe is exactly what the majority of people are now seeing here. But for a group of people that have, for years and years, been wanting to see stronger institutions, this is just one more, and it's reaching a critical point where people don't feel like often they can stand any more of these shocks. So I have exactly the same information as you in terms of the sources. There is going to be an inquiry. The government has already established and declared that a number of individuals, until further clarification, will be put under house arrest. But the key message, the key focus still has to be on those search and rescue operations, because there are still people to be saved, and in early recovery efforts. And I think that's really where most of the people are still looking at right now.
Yeah, but isn't that why people were in the streets protesting to begin with? Is that they felt their government was corrupt and incompetent? I wonder if this is going to really have a massive shift in who is leading Lebanon.
So there's definitely been a series of protests and demonstrations. From our side, we've been working from an aspect of strengthening growth and economic opportunities for people who are in a situation of vulnerability, and social cohesion. So we do see the need for stronger institutional response, and we try to do our part by bringing together municipality, refugees, host communities, those who are working to improve things. what you described is definitely part of a dynamic that is happening as we speak. And we hope that whatever changes take place, keep in mind that what we need to do is improve right now the well-being of those who are more at risk.
Rafael Velasquez, again, is the director of Mercy Corps in Lebanon, but it's worth mentioning again to our viewers who may not realize, some anyways, that Mercy Corps is headquartered right here in Portland. In fact, the headquarters are there in Tualatin, not too far from Bridgeport Village. And when we talk about Mercy Corps being on the scene, providing aid, helping the people, can you explain again, Rafael, what exactly that help entails, what you're doing for these people exactly?
Ultimately, our goal is to find and establish wherever is needed in situations of crisis. We try to help those communities transform towards secure, productive, and just communities. Beyond just providing life-saving support, water, sanitation, access to health, what sets Mercy Corps apart, and what you correctly described, is very much part of our culture being based in Portland. It is seeking these transformative changes, these system-level changes, so that the institutions we were discussing before become stronger and more accountable, so that the economy is more transparent and fair to those who are more vulnerable. In the case of Lebanon, our focus has been in supporting cohesion and economic opportunities for refugees and host communities. It changes from place to place. As you correctly pointed out, this is just one country, but you will find us in Central African Republic, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Nigeria, and in Colombia. It is what we do.
So we want to let people know in just a second, how people can donate and help you guys out. I'm curious to know, literally, like, what was on your to-do list today? Because it is 6 p.m. there, your time now. What do you do? Do you go to the hospital sites? Do you set up a tent for medical aid? Are you guys, going to people's buildings that are crumbled and helping, write down names and numbers and finding new places where they can literally sleep at night? What are the tangible things you guys maybe did today, for example?
So a number of our team members have been supporting local relief efforts. What you describe is precisely the MO in terms of normally an assessment to understand that there's no redundancies, to make sure that the little resources available go to where the biggest impact can take place. There is a number of resources coming from different countries, which I'm sure you've seen in the news, very much focused on relief efforts in that area that you're looking at right now, ground zero. There is still lives to be saved. There is still medical attention that is needed. We as Mercy Corps have a role to play there, but we also need to focus on those 300,000 people that have been displaced, many of who are out of a job, many of who don't have a business, people who, if they don't work that day, they don't eat that day. So when people ask me, what can they do to help? Any kind of assistance is needed. If you're here in Beirut, if you're here in Lebanon, from going to donate blood to going to help move the debris. If you're outside, if you're in the States, supporting organizations like Mercy Corps allow us to, beyond life-saving support, look at early recovery. Because, as you pointed out at the beginning, Beirut has fallen time and time again, and it always rises. But they need our help to do that.
Yeah. So, Raphael, we look at those just stunning pictures and video out of Beirut right now, and all we see is destruction. But can you give those of us who've never been an idea of what that culture is like, what life is usually like? You've got the Mediterranean there. I understand that so many of the flats are like there's a wall of glass in almost all of them because it is a beautiful place.
Beirut is absolutely breathtaking. Yes, the Mediterranean, but perhaps for me personally, more than that, it's the mixing of the cultures. It is the ability to one day spend in the, near the Mediterranean, in the coast, having some fresh fish, smoking shisha, talking to people from the Muslim community, and then going and talking to Christian Maronites who are neighbors and get their experience from a very strong, and perhaps just across the street, the Armenian community and their amazing food. Beirut brings all of this together. And although oftentimes people talk about the civil war, I will say that for the most part, anyone who visits Beirut will remember the hospitality. Again, the number of refugees before the Syrian refugees, there were the Palestinian refugees. This place has historically hosted people in need time and time again. And whether you're in love with, food from the Middle East, or whether you like food from Armenia, that's my big thing, as you can tell. I'm all about the food, but also the fashion industry, the love affair with friends. It's constant and it's there, and it's passionate people that are able to time and time again stand up against what seem to be, horrible circumstances.
Rafael Velasquez is joining us this morning here on Sunrise Extra, the director for Mercy Corps in Lebanon. And we had a viewer just now. When we do the Sunrise Extra program, Rafael, one of the great parts about this is that our viewers can chime in. They can comment live while we're doing the show. And Jennifer Taft is a regular viewer, and she echoed what you just said a moment ago, saying that, yes, Beirut is a beautiful city. She says the streets are combined old and new, and the people, she also said, like you did, are so giving there in Beirut. Obviously, with Mercy Corps, you could be stationed anywhere in the world at any time. I'm just curious how long you have been there in Lebanon, and where else Mercy Corps has sent you in the past.
So I was a recent arrival in Beirut. I just took over the country director role, and I'm actually in the middle of a transition. I have in the past worked for Mercy Corps in Guatemala very recently, a place very close to my heart where I spent 2.5 years. I was also, working with people from the Northern Triangle, strengthening violence prevention efforts and looking at food insecurity in that area as well. Before that, I was in Nigeria, where we were looking at supporting humanitarian efforts in the Northeast, but also preventing violence, intercommunal violence in the Middle Belt, while strengthening opportunities for education for girls. And before that, I was in Yemen, where we were working with youth, strengthening community systems, life-saving support. And before that in Ethiopia, all of this with Mercy Corps in the border with Somalia, preventing violence and strengthening livelihoods.
Wow. What a history.
Mercy Corps, again, headquartered here in Portland. I was just curious, have you ever been to the headquarters here in Portland, right there in Tualatin?
It's an interesting story for me because after a lot of time in Yemen in very difficult circumstances, I was ready to take a long, long break. And one of my bosses said, hey, yes, obviously you need some time off, but why don't you come and spend some time in Portland? And I spent 2 days in Portland, and I had such an amazing time that I signed to become the country director for Nigeria after a couple of days after the interview process, just hoping that I could come back to Portland at some point.
It's like 2 days is enough. I'm out to Nigeria.
Oh, it must have been a good, you did some soul searching and you got back to work. That's great to hear. Bottom line is, when I look at the stream right now and all the people that are watching us, one of the most asked questions is, how can we help? So when it comes to helping Mercy Corps, what is the best way to go about that?
You can go straight to our website. You will find there a little thing that you can click, a link that you can click and donate. That allows us to respond to situations such as the one that is happening in Beirut right now. I just got off the phone talking to our emergency support team, where we are trying to focus and see where we can have the biggest impact. So in this case, for example, I was talking a lot about those small businesses that are right now on the brink of disappearing, that provide a livelihood for 51% of Beirut. We're thinking that early recovery there is crucial. So any support that we can receive, we will try our utmost to look at that. But like you correctly pointed out, Mercy Corps is not only in Lebanon, it's all over the world responding to this type of situations.
Right, you guys are really like angels. I mean, the work you do is amazing. So thank you on behalf of all of us watching, what you do. We truly are in awe. Do you have any sense of how long it's going to take to get life back, to kind of patch it back to some semblance of decent? I mean, I just look at the video again and I'm just absolutely blown away by everything. How long will it take to recover-ish?
That's a really, really good and difficult question. I guess the best answer I can give you is that I don't know how long a lot of this reconstruction can take. We talked before about the economic crisis, for which there is really no solution in sight at this point of time. We talked about COVID. Every country in the world is facing the same difficulties, and we don't know when and how COVID is going to end. What I can tell you, though, is that the spirit of the people, their ability to withstand this and stand up and start, recover, restore, rebuild, is already there. This is already happening. If you go outside, right where I'm looking at the window, you will see people cleaning up. You will see people moving furniture. You will see people helping other people in the street. at least that is already ongoing.
Here's a question for you, because you brought up COVID. And, when we see here in the States a hurricane come through or some type of, natural disaster, you mentioned earthquake, we've seen mass shelters set up with beds and cots and medical. During COVID, you can't have theoretically, people so close together. I mean, what plan are you kind of formulating for the people who have lost their homes and literally just need like a bed to sleep on each night? How do you kind of make that work right now?
So this is an excellent point, because our day-to-day work has been affected since COVID, and we had to put in mitigating measures in terms of protective equipment and trying to find ways to deliver it when we have to keep social distancing. For the most part, we've been able to accommodate, obviously with some restrictions and within the parameters that were given in terms of health guidelines. Now, in the case that you mentioned, there are shelters being established, but one number that I was given just a couple minutes ago is that in the last 2 days, hospitals have gone through the equipment they had for 2 months because the massive surge of an intake of requirement of hospitals. Luckily, there is some relief coming in terms of medical supplies. Obviously, we don't know if it will meet the actual needs. And as you correctly pointed out, we expect a surge one way or the other, because even though you give protective equipment, even though we tried to give masks, not all the people I saw in that parking lot were wearing masks, many were not. It is only, I think there will be a spike in COVID, there will be an increase. So that is another area that we need to prepare for. But I refuse to, go down on a bad note in terms of we will find a way. If we have the resources, we will equip our staff, our team, our partners, and the communities to the best we can.
Again, we are joined this morning by Rafael Velasquez, the director for Mercy Corps in Lebanon, an organization that we'll repeat again because we're proud of the fact that Mercy Corps is based right here in Portland. You can help them out by going to their website, and it's been a fantastic organization for decades. They know how to take the money. So like Raphael said, right there on the homepage, you will clearly find the button that you can hit to donate to that organization. They are doing good work throughout the world. We do have to let you go here, Raphael. I was curious. I don't know if you are able to answer this question or not in the short time we have left, but in your experience with Mercy Corps, have you ever been assigned to an area that was hit as hard as Beirut was hit this week, whether it was a natural disaster or otherwise?
I've been on some difficult situations. Yemen comes to mind, for example. What makes this different is this was a one-off massive explosion that took down kilometers and kilometers of the city. That's not what we've seen in other places. So this level of destruction in a city like Beirut is new to me.
So many people need help right now. I feel like basically we ask our viewers to help our local neighbors every day. But the need is also great in Beirut this week. Raphael bringing us the story firsthand. He was there Tuesday, just 3 miles away when that explosion took place. So we thank you, Raphael, for taking some time out of your day today to share your experience and to talk about the great work that Mercy Corps is doing, not only there, but throughout the world. Thank you again for joining us on Sunrise Extra.
Lots of good energy coming your way.
Thank you,
Raphael.